Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Unlock Tuesday live stream. We are here live every single Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Whether you are watching on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram or LinkedIn, wherever you are going to be able to ask questions, get involved. And this topic today we have is super interactive. So we want to hear from you in the chat. Go ahead and let us know now where you are listening in from. And let us know if you have any rentals already and what your portfolio looks like, because that is going to be important as we talk through our topic. So we are talking today about your freedom number. And Kathy, what is your freedom number, just high level? And then I'll introduce you.
High level freedom number. It's having enough cash flow that you can make that day job optional.
Okay, so that is what we're aiming for here, is day job optional. What does that look like for your rental or real estate business to make your day job optional? And my guest today is Miss Kathy Benner, who has been a longtime friend, mentor. I admire you just so much, everything you do for the Columbus and really nationwide real estate community. You're just such an asset, and we're so excited to have you here today. So why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and explain why you're even able to teach us about a freedom number?
Boy, am I able. And here's why. First of all, thank you for having me on. I love this format with you and chatting, and then seeing what kind of questions that are going to pop up as we discuss this particular topic. But for me, I'm in the Central Ohio area. And for those of you that are listening, that kind of gives you perspective on where I'm coming from geographically. And for me, I always struggled financially all through my 20s and 30s, as many of us do, especially, you get out of college and, it's just tough. I get it. It's tough. I found myself being a single mom, and I needed to, put a roof over our heads and put food on the table and all of those things. So I ended up working a couple of, I say minimum wage jobs. They probably weren't totally minimum wage, but not the wages that, the university president is making, that sort of thing. So I'm out there struggling. I had a car that I was having trouble keeping it running. I really couldn't afford to buy a new car. I mean, you get it. We've all heard the story, the struggling single parent. And so my aha moment came when, again, I was in sales, and sales is tough. If you've ever been in sales, it's kind of tough. And so I was in sales, didn't know what I didn't know. I just kept pushing ahead. And every time I would learn something new, I would give it a try. And, I was trying and failing and failing and trying and trying and failing, but I still kept pushing forward because I knew I had this little girlie to take care of. She's all grown, by the way. I have 3 beautiful grandchildren now. And so the grandchildren are almost grown now.
Oh, gosh.
So, yeah.
Kathy, if you want, you don't have to do it. Can you tell everyone your age? Because I cannot believe it.
Yeah, I'm pushing 70.
She is not.
I am.
I don't believe it.
Yeah. And so I have a daughter in her 40s, and I have a grandson that is a Marine, and I have a granddaughter that is in college at University of Cincinnati. And then I still have one little guy. He's 11, so he's still full of vinegar. He's the youngest grandchild. So anyway, through all of my struggles, and being in sales, I wore at the time acrylic nails. Now, acrylic nails aren't as big a deal today as they were back in the 80s when I was going through all this. But I went to get my nails done, and my nail tech was this 19-year-old. Jesse, have you heard this story?
I have. I've heard.
Yeah, my nail tech was like 19 years old, and I asked her. I was feeling kind of bad for her because I thought, she doesn't have any college, and she's just, eating bonbons, waiting for a manicure to walk in. And when she told me how much money she made, it was rather shocking to me. So I made the decision right then that I was just going to get my license and I had yet a third job. I was going to just do nails, a couple evenings a week, and just try to save up some money because by then I was going through my 30s into my early 40s myself, and I didn't have any retirement planned. And I thought, you know what, I'm down to like 20 years here from like 40 to 60 to figure this out. And so I thought, well, if I could just do some nails a little bit, I can save that. And that maybe I could start putting it into an IRA or something to try to, get a retirement. And that was my first aha moment, was that I could make money in the cosmetology industry. My second aha moment was when I realized, and this hit me like a brick, Jesse. I couldn't believe it. It hit me all of a sudden. I'm out there doing my job, my day job still in sales, and I'm doing nails a couple nights a week. And I thought to myself, why are these people, we always see other people clearer than we can see ourselves, right? I thought, why are these salon owners paying rent in these shopping centers, and they run these salons for 20, 30 years, and they end up with a shoebox full of rent receipts? Why don't they buy a building?
Love it.
Why don't I buy a building? What am I thinking? So that's how it started. That was my big aha moment.
How long ago was your first purchase?
Early on in my 20s and 30s. I bought a mobile home when I was like 18, because I was going to be a homeowner and I couldn't afford a house. So at 18, I did buy a mobile home. And so again, I had purchased something to live in, but I never purchased anything as an investment until I was in my 40s.
Okay. So this was in your 40s.
Yeah. So this is my early 40s, maybe 40, 41, 42, somewhere in that range. I decided that I was going to buy my own salon building, and that I was going to be a salon owner, and that I was going to hire the booth renters is the term that it's called. That's the old term. It's actually independent contractors, but in the salon industry, we call them booth renters. And so it's where the stylist or nail tech simply rents a booth. They simply rent a station out of the salon. So I didn't have to manage the staff. I didn't have to manage the clients. I didn't have to manage the products. All I had to do was manage the real estate.
Yes.
And so that's how I actually got started. So I went for the first couple of years, built up a little bit of equity in my first building. As I paid the mortgage down and it appreciated, there started to be, some equity there. So I leveraged that equity on a commercial line of credit, and I bought a second salon.
Okay. Love it. Smart, savvy.
Yep. 2 or 3 years down the road, I did a third, and then a fourth, and then a fifth. So I ended up retiring in 25 years with 5 commercial buildings paid for, instead of having a shoebox full of rent receipts. And that became my retirement.
What a story of just seeing a need for something and seeing an opportunity and not making excuses and going for it and making it happen. It's incredible.
Now, again, that's the 50,000 foot view. For those of you that are listening, there was zoning issues we had to go through because I had never done commercial real estate. I barely had done residential real estate. I mean, I bought a condo to live in. And I bought that mobile home early on, but I wasn't a real estate investor. So like Jesse, I kind of got into real estate by accident.
Total accident.
So now I'm like, holy crap, I don't know what I'm doing. I got to figure this out. So I remember looking in the mirror saying, Kathy, you're smart enough to figure this out. You are smart enough to figure this out. I didn't have a Jesse that I could go to and say, what do I do about this? I didn't have a Kathy that I could say, what happens if this happens? How do I handle this? I just had to look in the mirror and say, you know what, girl, you are going to figure this stuff out.
This was before this was all on the internet too. So you were really figuring it out.
Well, and there weren't a lot of females. And now I'm going to tell on my hometown. Oh my gosh, this was so shocking to me. Now picture me. I know I look a little younger than I am, but I was 42 years old. I did not look 16. Okay. I was 42 years old. I go into my zoning office. I said, I just bought this house. The block is zoned commercial already. I want to open a salon. What do I need to do? He pulled himself away from his newspaper. He looked at me and said, could you send your dad or your husband?
No, boo.
I was like, what? I said, okay, first of all, my dad has passed away and I'm not married. So you're stuck with me. And he said, bring lots of money. And he went back to reading his newspaper.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
That was the reception that I got from our zoning office on my very first commercial building. And
I mean, Kathy, you, through all this, you made it work and you found your freedom number.
I did.
Yeah. So let's talk about it. If you kind of define the freedom number is the option to leave that 9 to 5. And so, for everyone listening, y'all, let us know, are you in a 9 to 5 job, or are you already working for yourself and you're trying to figure out when you can kind of, take a step back, whatever it is, because that's my situation. Like, I've been an entrepreneur since 2018, and we have, 3 different businesses that I manage. And it is a full-time job. And yes, I'm working for myself and it's beautiful and I love it and I wouldn't change a thing, but I am working. I work a lot. And so I'm looking for myself, my freedom number. When am I comfortable to take a step back? If you guys are, at your W-2, when are you comfortable to maybe go part-time like Matt Hill did, who was on a few weeks ago, last week? When can you actually take that step back? So I want to figure out, let's talk through it. How would we go about figuring that number out?
Well, first of all, you have to kind of reverse engineer the whole thing. You have to kind of look at your life and say, what lifestyle do I want to live? What is that freedom for me? So I think a lot of us go, I just want to be free. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean free to just sit on the couch 24/7? Or does that mean free to do some giving, maybe some volunteering? Is it free to travel more? Is it free to, what does that mean for you?
Yeah.
And so that's where the big question comes in, is what does freedom really mean? Because you
what
can't
does it
figure
mean?
out,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
why is it you can't figure out the number until you know what the lifestyle is that you consider free.
So what does freedom mean to you?
Well, for me, because I'm a little bit of a workaholic, just a little bit. I knew that I wanted my first decision for my freedom number is I knew I wanted to just cover my monthly bills. That was the freedom number for me.
And this was years and years ago. That was your number.
This was the first salon, the very first salon building. I now am doing. I was a nail tech. I was never fully licensed. I was licensed as a nail tech, so I'm in there doing nails. I've got I'm working, 12-hour days, 6 days a week. So I gave up a corporate job. I gave up 3 corporate jobs, and I created one great big huge monster of a corporate job for myself, where I was the boss, but I was still putting in 12-hour days, 6 days a week.
I can relate.
And so the first thing that I wanted to do is I thought, if I could just cover my debts, then I could take my foot off the accelerator a little bit. Because when you're in a commission business, and in a salon, it's a commission business, you're not making money unless a customer's at your station. And so I was afraid to take my foot off the gas, because I thought, wonder if one day this kind of starts to go away and I don't have the bills all paid yet. So the first freedom number for me was paying the bills. So once I calculated what are those bills, what do I have to do my home mortgage, the salon mortgage, the utility bills, the property insurance, the taxes, threw in my lifestyle. I had a car payment, so the health insurance, because I was self-employed, I had to do my own health insurance. Of course, I still had a daughter I was raising. And so I just put everything on the list that I had to pay for every month. And that became my freedom number. I thought, if I could generate enough cash flow over and beyond these expenses in passive income from rental income, then that could be my freedom number. So that was step number 1.
So you guys, this is your homework right now as you're listening, is pull up a Google Excel, pull up a piece of paper and a calculator, and start writing down all those expenses that we just named. Plus, you may have some investments that you make, or you may have just a wide variety, your health insurance, all this. Write down everything that you have to cover. Now, I know that number for my family. We've done this exercise, quite a few times over the years. And Kathy, I will say that the number keeps growing. It keeps growing every single year. So how do we plan for lifestyle creep, or even just cost of living general increase?
Well, real estate's the perfect way to combat that, because your real estate your rents are going to go up, your appreciation is going to go up, your equity is going to go up, and your mortgages are going to come down. Yeah. So it's kind of self-leveling. It automatically kind of keeps up with you. Now, here's where a lot of landlords fail. And I don't want to jump off topic, but if you're a landlord, oftentimes you're like, I don't want to raise their rent.
Raise the rent.
Good renters. You know what? I've had tenants early on, and this was a hard lesson. I had tenants early on that, oh my gosh, they're struggling because they were struggling when they came on board. And so I don't want to raise their rent. I don't want to make them leave. They're good payers. They don't call me a whole lot. I keep it the same, and 10 years later, they say, oh, we're buying a house. And when I look at the house, it's like 20 times better than my house. And I'm like, and they were like, we couldn't have afforded this if you wouldn't have kept the rent half of what it should have been. And I'm like, what? I'm over here struggling and you're buying what?
Yeah, definitely.
So don't be fooled by that. They're expecting you to raise the rent. Their incomes are going up. Their jobs are changing. They're making adjustments. Everyone's making adjustments. So I finally just settled in. And again, managing real estate is all about systems. And I just settled into a system where the cost of living increase just goes on every year automatically.
Same. Yep. We raise rent every single renewal, even if it's $50.
Yes. Yep. So, absolutely.
Okay. So we have all of our expenses. We understand that real estate can help offset scope creep. I will say I have recently, past couple of years, been a victim of lifestyle creep where maybe my taste in things has increased, and my shopping has kind of increased, my travel has increased. I'll tell you that. So that's just something we can plan for, though, right? Just plan for it.
Absolutely. And again, once you get into the real estate investor game, it's just a matter of just growing your business. So Mark said to me the other day, Mark's my significant other, for those that don't know. He's also a private pilot. He loves airplanes the way I love houses. And so he is constantly saving old airplanes, and I'm constantly saving old houses. That's what we like to tell people. And so the other day he said, I should just maybe sell a couple of these airplanes because the gas is getting too expensive and blah, 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 blah. And I said, Mark, you're thinking wrong. And he goes, what do you mean I'm thinking wrong? I said, you don't need to cut your expenses. You need to increase your income.
Yeah.
And he goes, what? And I said, you've been in that mindset for so many years that I have to cut costs, I have to cut expenses, I have to cut out the fun stuff. And I said, you just need to increase your income. And I said, and if you're doing it in a holistic way where it's a win-win-win for everyone, and I don't know who all's listening that maybe is or is not in Central Ohio, but we're getting thousands of new people moving into the area because of all of the industry moving in, and housing is going to be at a shortage. So anytime that I can be a preferred housing provider and bring a house that no one wanted to live in, that now I can bring to the table and have a safe, clean, new looking house for a family, that is, maybe this is their fresh start. Maybe this job that the husband got or that the wife got is like a huge deal for this family, and I can be a part of that, and then it also pays me. So it's a win-win.
Win-win. Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm hearing is, instead of trying to increase or decrease your expenses, go out and make more money. Use the skills you have and the market that you're in to go out and make more money.
Yes. Yeah. I teach a Build a Better Business program where I have folks that come to me for all kinds of businesses, not just real estate. And the first question that I ask them when they're struggling is, I say, what is it that you're doing now that makes you the most money? Do more of that. What is it that's making you the most money? Do more of that. If you're financially struggling, do more of that, and then start to deviate if you want to add some other skill sets. But do more of what makes you the most money, because if you're struggling financially, you stop dreaming and you stop growing.
Yeah, you're just in survival mode.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
But we're not trying to be in survival mode here. We are trying to be the exact opposite, thriving, doing what we want in our life. So what is the next step after we figure out how much money we would need every single month?
Well, then I think you have to look, if we're talking about funding this freedom lifestyle with real estate investing, I think you have to look at what area are you investing in. Okay. And again, because rents are dictated a lot by the community that the houses are in. So you have to look and say, well, where are my properties located and what kind of rents can I charge? And I want to bring a good product into the market for a good rental price. And once you determine that, you're going to, after a while, if you have 2 or 3 or 4 of those, you're going to know about what your average cash flow is. And then you know that if you 10x that particular business model, you're going to have more of the same cash flow off of each one of those doors. And then it's a simple math problem. Take that early number. Maybe it's 5,000 a month. Maybe it's 7,000 a month. Maybe it's 3,000 a month, whatever that number is, and divide it by the cash flow. And that's going to give you how many doors you need to make any other income optional for you.
Love it. Love it. And tell everyone about your portfolio. Like, what does your portfolio look like today? Because I know you had the 5 salons. I imagine, have you sold those?
Oh, no. You never sell a money-making investment.
Okay. I love it. So you still own the salons, you just don't work in them.
Well, and here, now again, you have to back up and separate the business from the real estate.
Okay.
I still own the 5 commercial buildings. I gave away the salons when I retired. Because let me paint this picture. And I have to paint this picture because I don't want everybody listening to this call to run out and say, I'm going to do a booth rent salon. Kathy did it that way, and that's how I'm going to do it. It's a whole different animal. Let me tell you, if you've not worked with 20 women all arguing about somebody borrowed my hairspray, then it's not the business for you, because there's a
nightmare.
There's a lot of drama, I'll just say. So anyway, but the point is this. Once I wanted to retire, I had to seriously look at what I owned. And here's where a lot of people go wrong. They think they're worth more than they are. They think their stuff is worth more than it is. And so what I realized is after 20 years, I had this building that I maintained and kept in pretty good shape. And so it grew in value, the building. But the business, I didn't own any of the staff. I didn't have any employees. They were all renters. They were all booth renters.
Right.
So I didn't own any of the employees. Well, their clients were their clients. So I didn't own any of the clients. Okay. So I didn't own the renters. I didn't own the clients. I didn't own the products because they all had their own preference in products. So I didn't own any of the products, the walls of shampoos. And I didn't own any of that other than what was in my little booth that I was using. But I didn't own any of that. All I owned was 20-year-old salon equipment. Now, it was still usable, and the girls were still working, and the styling chairs worked, and the nail tables worked, and everything still worked. But it was 20 years old.
Yeah.
What is it really worth?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, the only thing that I owned that had any value was the real estate. So what I did is when I wanted to retire, I looked out across all the staff members. I picked one that was a little bit head and shoulders above the rest. I said, have you ever thought about owning a salon? And of course, 100% of the time they said, well, yeah. And I said, okay, I will go with you down to the Board of Cosmetology. I said, I will help you, and you will fill out your license agreement with the board. And I said, I'm just going to give you the business. Then I'm going to also give you, because I knew what it took to get a business off the ground.
Yeah.
And even though I was handing them a going concern, there's, how it is. There's always a certain number of staff. They're like, well, if Kathy's not going to be here, I'm leaving. And so I knew there would be, some attrition. So I gave them a very favorable rental for 3 years. And because again, the building was paid for. And so I gave them a very favorable rental for 3 years, because I know it takes 3 to 5 years to finally get on your feet, or to feel like you're on your feet. I get that. And so I gave them all the equipment, and I said, now the only caveat is if you upgrade the equipment, I don't want the old stuff back. You got to get rid of it. Don't call me.
Yeah.
I don't want
a garage full of those hair.
And I still find nail tables when I open up my garage door. I don't know. They're multiplying. I don't know. So anyhow, long story short, I gave away all 5 salons that way, but I kept all 5 commercial buildings.
Smart.
And I gave them all really good rental rates to help them get started. So it was a win-win. They had a going concern. The staff that was there didn't have to find another place. The salon continued on, so the clients didn't have to uproot and find a different place to go get their services. I got to keep the building. And believe it or not, Jesse, my income went up.
I do believe it.
My income actually went up instead of down.
I believe it for sure. So other than the 5 commercial salons, what else is in your portfolio right now? Because I know you do a lot more than that.
Yes. Because as I was working in the salon business and I had these 5 buildings, there came a point, because again, the more you push the rock up the hill, you're rolling it up the hill. Once it peaks and starts rolling down the other side, you better just get out of the way because it'll pick up speed. Well, my financials started picking up speed to the point where I had to buy something. So I decided I was going to buy some residential properties because I needed some place to put some of this cash, because I still had my foot on the accelerator working 12-hour days doing the nails. And of course, I'm still making money to pay all my bills. I hadn't quit the day job yet. And the rental income was taking care of all of the expenses of the buildings. And so all of a sudden I was like, oh, I got to do something with some of this money. So it was twofold. Number one is I started buying single family. So I did buy a couple of duplexes. I did buy one fourplex, and all of this was working out really well for me. And then I decided that I wanted to diversify a little bit. So then I did some short term, some midterm, and long term in that whole residential sector. And so I feel that I'm very well diversified now. I just bought a condo in the last 30 days. So I'm now at 29 doors.
29 doors. Okay.
Yeah, 29 doors total.
And this started just a few decades ago with an accidental kind of aha moment that really triggered the whole thing. So 29 doors. How long ago I know that you're a workaholic, so am I. How long ago could you have fully retired?
Well, 7 years ago, I totally walked out of the salon industry. The doctor was on to me about it because, I've did the same motion, 12 hours a day for 25 years.
Yeah.
And finally, the doctor was like, okay, you're going to need shoulder surgery. You're going to need elbow surgery. You're going to need wrist surgery. You're going to need neck surgery. And then he said, wouldn't it be a novel idea if you quit right before I cut you all up instead of right after? Because he said, right after I cut you all up, he said, you're going to quit. He said, so wouldn't it be novel if you quit right before I cut you all up?
That's pretty good advice.
And I thought, ow, oh, okay. And it was really hard for me because I had created this salon. I had created these 5 salons, and my happy place was when I was sitting at my nail table and every station had a customer. Every station had a customer in the chair and one waiting, and people coming and going out of the parking lot. And I loved just hearing all of that. And it wasn't a big thing like, oh, pat me, like I did all this. I knew that I was making a difference in all these lives. I knew that what I created was feeding families. It was buying real estate for my staff. They had houses and house payments, and this was their income. And I knew that I had helped. Again, it goes back to being a win-win-win-win. And so I knew that I had helped, bring up the entire economy of all of the folks that were coming in and out of those buildings. And so, and that did my heart good. But I knew that at some point I had to walk away. So it was really hard for me, really, really hard for me. And I had to get a coach. So coaches like Jesse are very important. I had to get a coach because I couldn't walk across that finish line. I just couldn't. Because it was I identified as the premium salon in 5 different cities. And so I just had such a terrible time walking across that finish line. So I finally drew a line in the sand. I picked a date and I said, this is it. I finally announced it to my staff. I announced it to my clients, and I made the transition. But I was so afraid because I didn't know what that freedom, now that I had the freedom number, what was that freedom going to look like?
Right.
And that kind of scared me. I thought, what am I going to do? Sit around and watch soap operas all day? What am I going to do?
I mean, that's the beauty of freedom, is if one day you want to watch soap operas all day, you can. And if the next day you want to go for a 5-hour hike, you can do that too.
Exactly. But I wanted now to build a legacy. I wanted now to make my life mean something. And I knew that the only way that I could do that was to start giving to that younger version of me, that girl that, came up with a car that wouldn't run, sitting at the red light, wondering if the gas tank had enough gas in to get her to work, and seeing somebody whiz by on a bicycle and thinking, that could never be me because I have to work. What do those people do anyway that they can be riding their bike in the middle of the day? Right. Well, now I get to be that girl riding my bike in the middle of the day.
I love it. So you, Kathy, have achieved the dream. You've achieved the dream, and you spend your time just kind of real quick. How would you like? What does a normal week look like?
Well, again, I like being busy, so I create my own craziness because I can.
I can relate.
So one of the things I did is I opened up my home as a bed and breakfast. I love it. We have guests that come in from around the world. So oftentimes in the mornings, I'm chatting with guests from India or China or Germany or wherever they come from. And they walk through my living room and they pay me to stay here. And so I'm generating some income on the bed and breakfast. And that is my travel fund, my bed and breakfast money. And so when we do travel, I simply just block off the dates so that I don't have guests here when we're traveling. And our goal is to do 2 international trips a year.
Love it.
I never got to do before. Most recently, Mark and I backpacked across London and Paris.
Very cool.
And that was so much fun. And we chose to backpack because we wanted to be, we didn't want to just whiz by and miss everything. And you see so much more when you're walking. For those of you that are walkers and hikers, you get what I'm talking about. So anyway, that's what I wanted to do, was travel more. And so we do some of that. I did buy a condo in Florida because Mark, he says he's not a workaholic, but he is too, on airplanes. And so it forces both of us to kind of step away when we go down there.
Down.
Yeah, we walk on the beach. We have a whole slew of friends down there as well, because we've been there now 7 years. And so for the most part, it's reading and writing and hiking and biking and traveling. And I spend, a few minutes each morning on the real estate. But unless I'm in the middle of a move out or a move in or buying another property, the real estate with just 29 doors. And again, for some of you that are getting started, you're like, oh my God, 29 doors. If you put it into systems, then there's not a lot of work with just
super manageable.
Yes, that's super manageable, because a ton of my friends, well, like Jesse, have a lot more properties than 29. And so once you get your teams together and your systems in place, it really does not take a lot to manage that. And it does kind of go on autopilot. You have to tweak it here and there. You have to be available.
You got to stay on top of people.
Yeah, you have to manage it, but you're not down in the trenches every day.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Nope, not by any means. Well, very cool. Kathy, you're absolutely such an inspiration. I think of you often when I am thinking, you're such a giver with your time and your knowledge, and I think of that often. So thank you for being here. You guys, I hope this was kind of, we wanted to do an inspiration on what your life could be like with real estate as the key driver towards that financial freedom. And you're just such a great example of that. So thank you.
All right, Jesse, thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Y'all, and if you are interested in joining, myself, Kathy has a program as well. We would love to speak with you. Just let us know in the comments, and either of us will reach out. Mine is called Rentals Made Easy. Kathy, you want to do a quick little...
Yes, you can reach me just at kathybenner.com. I have free meetups. I do have some courses. I also can do some private coaching if you want one-on-one. But my free meetups, we meet on Zoom, and then Jesse and I hold hands a little bit in the coin group. Yep. And so all of my folks go over with her group on the third Tuesday of every month in Columbus, Ohio. And so you can meet both of us there.
Yeah. Thank you. And we will see you next time.
See ya.